You're welcome. Those of us in regulatory agencies, yes, government agencies, we are big on protocol. So let me recognize the Executive Director, NIPS, Professor Latif Olagobeji, the President, NIPS, Dr. Bola Osinowo, the National Executives of NIPS, all fellows, and Chair Lady of Lagos Chapter, Mrs. Ameruluwa, and the LOC Chairperson, Mrs. T. I think Mrs. Taiwo Ubani. Yes, she has been the one I've interacted with. She has been big on building relationship. So I bring warm greetings from the National Biosafety Management Agency. In fact, today I would say that honestly, when I entered the room, I felt a little bit like a student again. And maybe because there are some familiar faces that I know I see here who helped in bringing me up. I can see Mr. Ayon here. I can see Mrs. Agbo, and also my coldest mentor, Dr. Mrs. Eshet. I appreciate you all. Yes, going through the brochure also, I saw my supervisor. I was full of nostalgia when I saw him in the brochure. That's Chief Alaka. And unfortunately, he's not here. He was a good father to all of us. I must say that. So I was Dr. Mrs. Yenusia Sabra. She sends her respects and best wishes to every one of you here. She would have been here herself, front row and fully present, but you know how duty has a way of showing up on it, what she cannot defend later. So I have to be careful with what I say here. Like I said, with my interaction with Mrs. Taiwo, yes, I had a paper that I was to present, but she asked me to do a strategic overview of what GMO is and GMO regulation in Nigeria. So I had to come up with this slide. The slides you're seeing there. Excuse me, please. Yes, I came up with this. I want to be fast so that I can beat the time that I was given. I want to move to the next slide, please. Understanding genetically modified organisms. However, I want to appreciate the first and the second speakers because they've made my job really easy. They've touched on some of these things, and I will just move quickly so that we can move into what MBNA is doing. So understanding GMO. I don't know if we all understand what GMO stands for. Do we all understand what GMO stands for? Genetically modified organisms. It could be plants, it could be animals, it could be microbes. And all it takes is just for you to isolate any desired trait that you want and transfer it into another organism that you want to express that trait. So the traits could be herbicide tolerant, it could be pesticide resistant, it could be drought tolerance, it could be even flood tolerance, or anything that can, any trait that can help with environmental stress. So moving forward, please, I'm moving to the next slide, please. The next slide. Yes. The The next slide is talking about the historical timeline of GMOs. How did GMO come to be? In 1973, they first developed or discovered recombinant DNA. And then in 1982, something wonderful happened. There was a breakthrough in science whereby the FDA approved the first ever GMO. And that first ever GMO is the human insulin. The human insulin. You know, traditionally before now, they used to harvest these insulins from animals like pig, cows, and for you to supply insulin to just one patient in 1 year, you will need to kill about 60 to 100 cows or 60 to 100 pigs before you can get that amount of insulin that will sustain a diabetic patient for 1 year, just for one patient. So, but with the introduction of genetically modified insulin, we now have this insulin readily available everywhere. It is easier for companies to develop human insulin in their companies right now. And they use genetically modified organisms like E. coli. They use E. coli. The way it is done is they will isolate the gene of insulin in humans, and they will insert it in the microorganisms in a very conditioned environment, and the microorganism will start secreting this insulin. And you know how microorganisms grow? They grow very fast. So the more is insulin. So that is the first major breakthrough in modern biotechnology, the production of GM human insulin, also known as humulin. So moving forward, the first ever commercialized GMO food products this time, that's food crop, is tomatoes. It was commercialized in 1994. So this one was engineered to have a longer shelf life so that it would be easier for transportability and for keeping it. So, excuse me. So the tomatoes is the first one that was commercialized. Then in the 1990s, we have waves of different types of GMO crops like the soya beans, the canola, the potatoes, the papayas, squash. They were all commercialized in 1990. So this is to tell us that for the past 3 decades, we have been consuming GMOs, even without realizing it. Let's move to the next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, I think I have explained how GMOs are made. I said earlier on that you extract the gene and insert it in the... Please, let's go to the next slide. Trying to move very fast. Okay, here is we are now talking about GMO regulation in Nigeria, how NBMA came to be. NBMA was established in April 2015, and our mandate is to provide regulatory framework, institutional and administrative mechanisms for safety measures in the application of modern biotechnology and emerging modern biotechnology in Nigeria. So now, to ensure that the use of modern biotechnology and GMO is safe for human health, animals, plants, and environment, Nigeria established this regulatory organization that is known as NBMA. So we have our NBMA Act, which is what we call our Bible. It has all the guidelines and everything that we need for our processes. NBMA in Nigeria is the watchdog of biosafety. In fact, NBMA is the sole authority for the regulation of biosafety in Nigeria. So there is no other regulatory body that regulates GMO in Nigeria except NBMA. So let's move forward, please. The next slide. NBMA's achievement in biosafety regulation. Now, these are the only approved GMOs in the country. Please pay attention, is the only approved GMOs in the country. We have the BT cotton, we have the BT cowpea, we have the teller maize, and we have the HT soya beans. So there's been a lot of misconception out there and misleading information. And even you see some visual images whereby they will be injecting a food crop and they will tell you this is GMOs. GMOs is not about injecting chemicals, no. It's just about the modification of gene. And when you are modifying this gene, sometimes it's usually just one particular gene that is modified or introduced in that organism. So these are the ones that have been approved for consumption, for commercial release in Nigeria. These ones you are seeing here. So if they tell you that there's any other one, we don't know about it. And you can let us know so that we'll investigate. Let's move to the next slide, please. Still talking about the achievements, these other food crops are still under confined field trials. Because the way we regulate GMOs, we don't just do laboratory analysis and release them, no. It takes about 8 to 10 years of studies, investigation, rigorous scientific analysis to ensure that this food crop will not harm human health, it will not harm animals, and it will not impact our environment negatively. So these ones are still on trial, like the African biofortified sodium, the IAR, Zaria is handling that. They are trying to enhance the iron and zinc, protein and provitamin content of sodium. Then IITA is working on delaying post-harvest spoilage of GM cassava. Then NRCR, that's the National Root Crop Research Institute of UNIBK, is also working on resistance to cassava mosaic virus. So they are developing GMOs that will be resistant to virus, GMOs that will have elevated iron and zinc in them, like the cassava, so that when you are eating your cassava, you are not only eating the starchy content of the cassava, you are also eating and taking iron and zinc. Just as one of the students mentioned, that very soon our food will start being medicine. That is what this is gearing to. Next slide, please. Okay, now this is NBMA biosafety regulatory process. So you can see that there's a whole long, lengthy process to what we do, and it takes about 270 days before we take a decision on any GM product. So it starts with application submission, or anybody who is interested in working with GMO has to apply. You submit your application electronically, or you can bring it physically to the office. And then when you bring it, our team will do an internal review. We have some checklists that we check the boxes to make sure that the document is complete. So when we check and your documents are complete, then we move to the next stage. But if it's not complete, we will request for additional information in cases whereby there might be missing information or information that are not clear. So the next so the next stage is public view. We display this application in 3 national dailies, that's 3 national newspapers, so that we can get public input. Their comments, their objections, they are very, very important to us. So after collection of this public input, the next thing we do is to constitute what is called NBC, National Biosafety Committee. And this National Biosafety Committee consists of multi-sectoral experts in different agencies. not just NBMA, no. We will call experts from NAFDAC, SON, from institutions, the professors of institutions, and those, and even institutions that are working with that kind of GMO. So we call them to come and check on these things. And once they are done, the thing they will do is they will constitute another committee called National Biosafety Technical Subcommittee. In this committee, they are the ones who handle the technical aspects, all the risk analysis, risk assessment, all those things, they are the ones who do them. And once they are done, they will make recommendations before NBMA will now decide whether to reject or to approve that GMO. I'm hearing that my time is okay. The next slide, please. This is biosecurity. We do not only regulate biosafety in Nigeria, we also regulate biosecurity. And when we talk about biosecurity, we are talking about the intentional release of pathogens, harmful pathogens in our environment. I know some of us, or all of us still remember Ebola, when we had Ebola, when we had COVID and all that. Those are the things that biosecurity tries to save us from. And it also tries to save us from the theft or loss or misuse of microorganisms within our borders. So now, the next slide, please. I just want to touch briefly on traceability and monitoring. We have a way we do our own traceability. I'm happy that somebody touched it before. So we have what is called a single window system. It is the Nigerian Trade Portal. NBMA is part of this trade portal. So we use these systems to monitor the entrance of GMO in the country, to flag the shipment or to detect shipments, and to monitor everything that has to do with GMO. Okay, the next slide, please. The next slide, is talking about NBMA's vision for smart biosafety. Our first speaker has touched on it, the use of QR codes, blockchains, AI, and other things. So we are actually looking at incorporating these things in our processes. And as I speak now, NBMA is actually working in partnership with NAFDAC to develop a guideline that will also utilize some of these smart technologies. The next slide, please. Okay, this is our strategic priority, expansion of oversight function like the lab-grown foods that the second speaker talked about. They are not currently in the country, and there's none of them that we have approved yet, but we have a mandate through our biosecurity policy to regulate these things. So we already have guidelines for all these emerging technologies, and we don't want anybody to be afraid of these emerging technologies. So, okay, let me say thank you.
Very much. Another round of applause for her, please. Thank you.